Hi, Nadia Ruiz. Thank you for coming. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me first. I'm Nadia Ruiz. I have a PhD in philosophy. I did my PhD in the University of Kansas. My area of specialty is philosophy of science, social science, and economics, but I have a forever interested in feminist philosophy, and now because of my background in science, now I'm getting more into doing research in feminist philosophy of science.
Now we want to talk about forgotten female philosophers. So, who was Sor Juana?
And I'm gonna start talking about her and how you look, or like how you found about her in some of the Anglo dictionaries or entries, right? So for example, the Britannica online encyclopedia described her as a poet, dramatist, a scholar, and nun from the Mexican colonial period. And it is right, she's all that, but she is not labeled as a philosopher. And that's the reason why I infuriate every time that I see this. Because she was a philosopher, not only writing about issues concerning women's rights to education, but also wondering about topics such as human understanding. For example, you can read her poem Primero Sueño, and scientific methodology. I mean, she has one of her most, I think, quotes that some philosophers know her for is that in one of her writings she said that if Aristotle had cooked more, he could have written more about science. So I'm gonna talk to you a little bit more like who is this person? So Sor Juana was born in San Miguel de Nepatlan, it's south on Mexico, maybe in the 1660 something. It is not unknown, but she's in the 1660 something when she was born. Um, it's there's rumors that people think, or like people confirm, that she learned to read at age 3, which is very important of about her character. She is this type of people that is self-taught. They self-taught themselves to do stuff. But as you know, in colonial Mexico, women were not allowed to go to school. So, as someone that is in colonial Mexico, if you really want to go to school or you want to get educated, you only have one chance, which is become a nun. Because in convents, you were able to study theology, or like you had access to books. So, and this is very interesting because in 1676, around 17 years, maybe 16, 17 years old, she entered the austere convent of Orden de las Carmelitas Descalzas de San Jose. These austere convent is this type of convents where like they were like very not poor, but they were like trying to be virtuous with very little. So guess what? In this convent, they didn't have a library. So she left after 3 months. She was like, no, I don't want to be a nun anymore. You can see just her persona, that she became a nun not because she wanted to be religious, but she actually became a nun because she wanted to be educated. And this self that one of the most, I think, smartest people that we have came across in our civilization.
As I've seen in your presentation, Sor Juana had an uncommon style of writing. So, why was that, and how did she justify it?
First, I don't think she justified it, right? So she was very embarrassed. I mean, that's the very funny thing of her. Like when you start like reading her, like you can see that she was a badass, right? Because she was not justifying anything to anyone. She actually was making fun of the people who were reading it. That at that moment, you should guess who were the people reading about her. Only male, right? She uses something that it has been described as philosophical satire, and the philosophical part has to do because she was dealing with very deep questions, like what is knowledge, or how we come to understand things, like from seeing it to reflecting on them. So that's the philosophical part, right? And the satire is because, as I told you, she was this very, I think she knew she was very smart, so she played with it, and she was very, very like fast and elegant in the type of arguments that she gave, but she gave them always with this type of using humor, irony, or even like exaggeration, just to ridiculize the people she was talking to, right? So, for example, one of the very best examples to see what she was doing is her poem, Foolish Men. Why then you are surprised by your very own guilt? Love women as you made them, or make them the way you want them. So is actually saying that this poem is great. Like, she's saying to men, like, everything that women do is because, one, you have created women to be this, and then if they don't do that and do the other one, then you get sad, right? So she ends this poem by saying, like, I don't know why you're like guilting women so much. Either you love them as you have created them, or like just recreate them again, which is very deep. Imagine she's writing in the 1600 something, and she's already talking about that woman is just this gender construct, a social construct, that it has been given this type of normativity from nowhere, mainly for patriarchal norms. And they're like saying, why are you doing these type of things? Like, why are you writing about this type of stuff? Like, you're like a holy woman. You should write only about like God. She says something like, how is it that you want me to write about theology? Right? So first, it has nothing to do with a lack of desire, but it's fear instead the reason why I'm not doing it. Due to my sex, my age, and lack of education makes me unworthy candidate to study the Bible. So, as a woman, the only thing I can make a grown interpretation on matters of the Holy Script and the Holy Office will punish me for corrupting people's souls. Contrary to this, if I make a mistake on matters of secular topics, the punishment, laughter, and criticism. Also, since I'm a woman, the burden of being right is less. So she's making an argument by saying that the reason why she doesn't write about theology is because if she writes about theology and makes a mistake, people is gonna, it's kind of like, how you say, heresy, right? So you can, but instead, because she's a woman and she writes about like local stuff, like no one cares. So you can even see like she's using even her, like, I'm a woman, like who cares what I'm writing about these other topics.
How did she justify that the lack of women's education is not given by nature, but by institutionalized structures?
Women have the right to education because it's also in the nature of women as humans to want to know stuff, right? So it's the colonial church that is not allowing that. But since she cannot fight colonial church, the only thing that she can do is have this kind of idea, like, let me be a teacher, right? And if you want to be a teacher, then you need to know more stuff. And I think that's for her when she wants it. Well, in order to get rid of, these problems of like power structures, or like men being so, imposing beliefs in the young novice, just let us do our old women or nuns and teach or the female, right? So that's her justification.